Who's to say? In one of our classes recently, we were starting to talk about some different things and some stuff that I've been reading lately. And those that you know me, I'm really taken with the communication that's coming through now, through spirit, through enlightened beings, people like you. Yeah, people like you. And they're getting more and more reads on the communication that's coming through. And so one of the things I shared with you this morning in the reading comes from Adamus, which is Live Your Divinity. It's a book that I first picked up this book because I was reading this book called Jesus, My Autobiography. And Jesus talked about Saint Germain. And so I got interested in Saint Germain. Who was Saint Germain? He could talk about Saint Germain was a friend. So as it turns out, Adamus, Saint Germain is channeling through a guy named Jeffrey Hopp. And if you can move that slide step for me. He wrote this book, channeled this book, I should say, called Live Your Divinity by Adamus Saint Germain. And go to the next slide. But it was part of the reading that Tony shared with you this morning. It said, in everything you're going through right now, and I love Adamus because he is like this rowdy guy. And I think I kind of associate with that a little bit, right? He just puts it out there, you know. And when Jeffrey channels him, he's walking around engaging the audience. I mean, I just enjoy it. It's just a lot of fun. He said, in everything you're going through right now, no matter what it is, in everything you're going through right now, you cannot do it wrong. Hallelujah, right? Because I thought I was doing stuff wrong for a long time, right? You can do it miserable. I've done some of that, right? And you can do it the hard way. I've done a lot of that, right? But you can't do it wrong. And I was inspired by that. I'm inspired by this channeled work. I'm inspired by Adamus Saint Germain. Well, Jeffrey actually began channeling and was flying across the country. He's a very successful entrepreneur. Was flying across the country in an airplane and was just kind of meditating a little bit. And he'd been reading this book called Cryon, this entity, this being called Cryon. Anybody heard about Cryon? Or I see a few hands go up. Yeah. So Cryon never took human form. We're getting real woo-woo today. We're going to get woo-woo, right? Woo-woo, right? So Cryon never took human form, but Cryon started channeling through a guy named Lee Carroll. And this was the very first book. It's called The End Times, New Information for Personal Peace. I like that, right? Channel teachers, given in love. And Cryon really began to tell us about this, all of the prophecies that had been going on from Nostradamus and many of the prophets in the past where they were predicting, as you know, biblically, we got a lot of prophecies about Armageddon and those kinds of things. And it was all predicted to happen in 2000. Anybody miss that? Did you miss the Armageddon? Did you miss that? Right? It didn't happen. It didn't happen. And so what Cryon began to teach me, and I want to share with you this morning, is that you changed the energy of the planet. Yes, you. That's right. You didn't. We have you and your consciousness. By evolving your consciousness, you're moving our planet closer and closer, ultimately to a world of peace. I know we've been told it would never happen. You're making it happen because you're withholding judgment. You're withholding condemnation. You're withholding an expression of angst or anger. And you're saying, maybe there's another way of seeing this. You're taking back your power. You're not letting what's outside you determine your happiness. Give yourself an applause for that one too. Right? So Lee Carroll, he has traveled all over the world. He's spoken at the United Nations, channeling Cryon. And he started doing this to hundreds of thousands of people around the world. This is Tel Aviv in 2015. Hundreds of thousands of people around the world have gone to these channelings. And Cryon is just, he's amazing. Well, he's written 14 books. They're not thin either. 14 books of channeled work. So I started reading this series back in, I think it was started in late October, November. And I'm halfway through book number 14 right now. And I'm loving it. Well, in reading this, it also led me to another book called How the Bible Became the Bible. And this is just a screenshot of the cover. This is by Donald Odell. So Lee Carroll kind of pointed me back to how the Bible became the Bible. So I started reading about how the Bible became the Bible because I was really curious because how the Bible became the Bible, as far as I was concerned, started when I started going to church when I was 10 years old. And this is what happened, right? Jesus was, Son of God and crucified and all the stuff that went with all that storyline. Well, this book then led me to one more book, right? And that book is called the mystery. It's called the Jesus Mysteries. And these guys were scholars, and they grew up in traditional Christian theology just like I did, but they started questioning, where are the beginnings of the Bible? And man, what a great education. So I would recommend those two books for anybody that really wants to know where did all these teachings come from that, well, at least I bought into at a very young age, because that would have been passed down, through my family heritage. And as it turns out, there's the story of this Savior, and he was born of a virgin mother, and he, was walked on water, and he was ultimately crucified and all those things. But his name was Dionysus. So it was Osiris Dionysus. And this was hundreds of years before Jesus. And then there was another one, and then another one, and then another one. You see, this is a story that had been passed down for millenniums. And all of these avatars, all of these enlightened, what we can call enlightened beings, through this storyline, all had the Virgin Mother. I thought Jesus was the only one, right? And it's a story that's been passed on generation to generation to generation. And so it's really started to intrigue me about how all these things, we just keep passing on these stories. And I kept digging deeper, and ultimately, the whole story of the Virgin Mother comes from the study of astrology. And as we pass from equinox to equinox and different times as the Earth is passing around the sun and the sun is passing through the galaxy, we can see different series of stars. And this goes way back, literally thousands of years back to the Stone Age. And they mapped out the stars back in the Stone Age. The Greeks had a big part of that, the pagan mythology and all that, right? Well, it all became very intriguing to me, but the whole storyline that was attributed to Jesus actually was pagan mythology and came from astrology. So we're having this discussion in one of my course classes, and one of my students said, well, who's to say? Who's to say what the truth is? Well, who are we supposed to believe? I mean, I'm standing up here telling you about channeled work. Can't touch it, can't feel it, can't prove it. It seems to be pretty woo-woo, way out there. And some people are like, don't go over there to Unity because they're kind of woo-woo over there, right? Because we got the Jesus story. And as it turned out, Constantine, in I think it was 392 in the Common Era, he basically tried to stamp out all of the history of the Greeks and the Romans well, not the Romans, but the Greeks and the Egyptians and the pagan stories. And so that's why most people today in Western culture especially have never heard of any of these stories, have never heard of how this happened. So I invite you to study that. But who's to say was a good question. And I said, and so that kind of opened up the conversation for today. So in A Course of Love, it says, all webs of relationship, all energy fields are absolutely neutral. Now that's one of the hardest teachings that I personally have ever had to try to grasp. All relationships are webs of relationships. Every relationship in here. And since everybody's a visitor today, right? Everybody's new today. It's a brand new day. You all know each other in here. Pretty much everybody has a web of relationship. When I look at your face this morning, there's not one face I see in here today that I don't feel a relationship with. Some are short, some are long, some are fight songs, and some are love songs, right? But they're all relationships. They're all great relationships. And the thing that's underneath all of them is the only thing that's real. It's love. All the other stuff, the ideas, the concepts, the story that we overlay on all of our experiences, is just made up. It's just a web of relationships all made up. So who's to say? Who's to say that the relationship that you have with the person that's sitting right next to you or right across from you, who's to say what that relationship's about? You are. You get to decide in every moment what it is, how it is, and what it means. And you put a storyline over top of all of these relationships with our children, with our parents, with our loved ones, our significant others, our spouses, our bosses, the president of the country. We decide if it's good or bad. We decide and we make a judgment in every moment about everything because that's what we're really good at. Everybody in here, I'm pretty sure, has at least one or two opinions. Yes? And I know a few of you have more. What creates experience is how you decide that you will view that web of relationship, that field of energy. You decide. You decide what it means. You give everything all the meaning that it has. Nobody's doing anything to you. You're doing it all to yourself. We talked many, many times. My beautiful fiance shares the story many times with you that the world is reflecting back. What's it reflecting? You. It's reflecting the meaning that you give everything. And so the bottom line, the one that's so hard and so fundamental in your peace of mind, in your able to maintain a strategic countenance throughout the day, in everything you do, the bottom line, if you can just remember this phrase, and it's the foundational teaching of A Course in Miracles. It's the foundational teaching of Jesus Christ. It's the foundational teaching of the Way of Mastery. It's the foundational teaching, etc., 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 because it's what's really going on, even though we find this very difficult to accept. And it simply says, all events are neutral. All events are neutral. 4 words. If you can look at any situation, regardless of what that situation is, if you can look at any situation, and this is really important, my friends, because you will not get through the day today or tomorrow or this week without dealing with situations that appear to go against your idea of the way things are supposed to be. Yes? You know I'm right about that. You know you're going to bump up against some resistance this week. Natalie already talked about it this morning. You are going to bump up some resistance. And you have an opportunity to remember the truth. The events are neutral. You see, thoughts are things. Thoughts create. You are a creative spirit. You and God are one. God is the creator and creates as itself, as herself, as himself. You are creative. And with every thought that you hold, every idea of resistance, every idea of vengeance, every grievance, every idea of sorrow, every idea of loss, whatever it may be, you are magnifying that energy by holding that thought. And it goes out on the mirror of this world, reflects right back to who? You. What kind of day do you want to have today? Who's to say? You are you are the most powerful being in the universe. You, let me say it again, are the most powerful being in the universe, and so you get to decide this very day how this day will be, how this week will be, how this month, how this year, how this life will be, in every web of relationship that you have. What this means is waking to really a reverence within yourself for the mystery that God is, for the mystery that love is, and it's springing up all around you, all the time. Things are happening, things are happening, things are happening. Yes, it's reflecting back your thoughts, but it's also reflecting back to you the group consciousness, if you will, of other people's thoughts. And you get to decide every day, with every moment, with every expression, because all of your expressions are communications of what you value. Do you value love or do you value fear? That's the only 2 choices you have. It's the only 2 choices you have, love or fear. It means waking to a reverence for this mystery that is life. That's a capital L, life. Life is living you. Are you pushing against it? Are you resisting it? Are you allowing it to unfold and realizing that all the events that you're experiencing are absolutely neutral, have no meaning? They're a reflection of thoughts you've held, and you have the choice to have new thoughts, to dispel that old energy, move into this new energy that's encompassing our whole planet right now, continuing to grow this consciousness that we're experiencing together, this joy, this amazing transformation of our entire world, our entire universe. And you are that powerful being that's making it happen. And I am honored and grateful to be in your presence, to be in that web of relationship with you. I know you. You've allowed me to be in your life and to know you. You've allowed Claudia and I to be in your life and to begin to know you. And this relationship will not end. I want you to understand that. It will not end. We're eternal travelers together. There's no death. There's only transformation from one relationship to another relationship. But you are being lived as life, and it will continue, and we will journey and continue to journey with you. From A Course of Love, consciousness, the power to be aware, the power to choose is what you truly are. You are consciousness. The power to choose means that you can decide if something that you hear about is good or bad. That's how powerful you are. And how you approach it, how you reach it, how you give it definition is all you. You are a piece of God. You are the creator of your very life, your very experience. Live it. Not miserably, but joyfully. Don't make it hard. It doesn't have to be hard. It's the fear that makes it hard. There is no such thing as fear. As soon as you transition it, transcend it is the word I was looking for. When you transcend it with love, because you can't hold those two vibrations at the same time. And no matter how anybody's presenting themselves to you, they're either presenting themselves as love or they're crying for love. And you've got a choice to either present yourself as love or as a cry for love. And so when you feel that something's working against your idea of the way things are to be, you can simply attack it and try to fix it. Or you can be a master of love, like our brother Jesus and Dionysus and all those before us, who simply pointed the way and simply said, choose love. Choose love. So here's what I say. It's time to step fully into mastery, not by lamenting what has been, who you are, or anyone else has been, or will choose to be. You've had these experiences. You already know these experiences. And when we finally forgive ourselves and forgive others for being, and they have a right to be and to be where they are, who they are, as they are. And when we allow people to be who they are and forgive them for that, we can begin to forgive ourselves as well. Who you or anyone else has been or will choose to be. It's time to realize that in each and every moment, we are creative, we are creating, and we're creating an effect that is perfectly neutral. So when it reflects back to you, it's just showing you yourself. Don't judge what's out there. Release it, forgive it, love it, embrace it, and transcend it. And this is perfectly neutral and in and of itself means nothing except what you give it, the value that we give it. We call that the world. It's all around. Who's to say? Who's to say? I know who's to say. You are. You are the all-powerful one. Take back your power, my brothers and sisters. Take back your power. Don't let any event in your life disturb your peace. You are that powerful. And any voice of fear that tells you that you're not is a lie. I've seen it in you. I've witnessed it in you. I love it in you. And I appreciate you letting me speak with you today. Thank you very much.